backtrack a little bit, so to contextualize this part of the talk, because we were looking at his sculpture work, and one of the things that's really interesting about this process, even though this was a commercial project, you kind of moved it over this idea of floating shapes into photography and staging these photographs rather. Mm-hmm. Tell me, where were these taken?
Oh man, so this series was like birthed in Havana, and like, you know, my first time going to Havana, I wanted to shoot with my grandfather's lens because, you know, he just passed away before I started going. There's so much I wanted to learn about the motherland of my family and stuff. So these photos, though, the interesting thing about them is all the people that are in the photo, I don't know them personally. I only spoke to them for like a minute or two. It was like this real quick interaction, and these photos would come out, right? So like I would take them and I wouldn't really have to tell them much. It was like they were interacting with something that wasn't there, but like kind of like they were interacting with me in a way. And I was kind of just throwing my shapes and isms on Illustrator at night when I would go back to where I was at after shooting all day, just hanging out. And then it just kind of worked. And then in a weird way, it kind of has a lot more meaning than I really intended without even realizing, you know, because it's kind of like they're interacting with these shapes and this style, which is kind of foreign to them, but not really like familiar. So it's like me kind of interacting with people, you know, where my family's from, or interacting with like society in the motherland of my family. So it was kind of like a way for me to connect. And then at the same time, like I mentioned, my grandfather was a photographer. So it kind of birthed like this whole photography series, just inspired by him and everything that he did.
One of the things that I like about this series and where it leads is in that you use it again for this installation, this large scale installation. And most folks are looking at this straight on and not really seeing what's happening and how you carry this concept over, right? Of lifting form and color off the surface. And tell us about this project.
Oh man, this project was a blessing. I was able to work with this amazing team over at Icon Class, and shout out to all those guys up there, Sky and Geraldo and all those NY homies, Ventura. In this project, it was the Miami Nike shop, which is on Lincoln Road, and I was to create, you know, something that was during the time of El Clasico with a lot of movement and sculptural elements, and still be a mural at the same time, to embrace it, like to celebrate the sport. So I used as a figure one of the female players from the University of Miami team. I don't remember her name, but I just kind of stole an image of the bottom half of her body kicking the ball through one of the new models of the shoe on there. But if you turn to the side, if you have a photo of it, you'll see all the shapes that I painted, I actually have on a fish wire. So the air system inside of that room constantly has them moving around. So when you're walking on Lincoln Road, you know, you'll be able to like see this mural. When you come up to it, the pieces are like coming off of the wall. And I paint, you know, when I paint the shapes on the canvas, I do a lot of fast movements, so it kind of records that feeling. So it feels like the piece was moving at the same time, you know.
And also, as part of the project, you designed a graphic logo that they used for the patch.
Right. This was like a celebrity match with so that team was Drake's team, and those shirts that they printed at the shop, they actually had these exclusive jerseys made for the players, and those are the patches that they have that you see there, which is a representative of Miami, which is like a palm tree with a soccer ball behind it. Mm-hmm. And those were real family and friend exclusive, I guess. You know, I ended up getting a couple of them and giving them to the fam.
Yeah, well, one of the nice things is that this you know, we're peeling you back, and now we know that you've done, you know, fine graffiti, and you're doing this, exploring this fine art, and you're now in the commercial space. But that goes back some, doesn't it? Right? We were talking about how the origins of abstract, and you submitted these pictures of Fat Joe from the covers of The Source, where he's wearing these shirts that you designed.
Yeah.
Let's go into that.
Those were done on my balcony when I was like, I think just turned 20, 21, with a friend of mine who now actually has a clothing store called Survival down in in the mall, and he's got one up by the stadium by I still call it Joe Robbie Stadium, but Pro Player, no, not even Pro Player anymore, Hard Rock Stadium. So these shirts were done. We were selling these shirts in the street, right? Like Pun and Biggie and all this stuff during Memorial Weekend with all these stenciled, you know, shirts. And when we ran into TS in the street one time, at behind like at some concert there, you know, we were like, yo, we got to give them shirts out of respect. Like, yo, this is dope. If he throws one on stage, you never know, whatever. And we're like, it'd be dope. Just give him all the Pun shirts that we have. So we emptied our bags, hooked them up, and then he would hit us up occasionally, you know, to match his shoes, because, you know, Joe's like king of sneakers, you know, especially at that time. You know, he's have like player exclusives and stuff like that. So he was just hitting us up to match his sneakers. Like you can see there, he has the Carmelo 2 Jordans on, and
Yeah,
he got the cover of the Source. Yeah, he got the cover of the Source, and it was really crazy because I was young and I was like, you know, my son was just born, and I was like trying to figure out, well, you know, we got to come up with a name now because we're on the cover of the Source and it's a really good promo. And I remember I went up to New York, and I was staying at the 179th and St. Nick at the Bridge Apartments at a cousin's house, my wife's cousin. And we were painting shirts on the balcony, and the fact that we were on the cover of the Source, we had like all the dudes from the neighborhood like putting orders like crazy, because it was like, yo, that's stuff from the cover of the Source. And we're like, we need to come up with a name. So came up with Abstract Clothing. And then over some time, I kind of got tired of doing trying to push and sell stuff, because I was like, my work isn't developing, right? I don't want to just sell stuff all the time. Like, I want to work on my work. So I kind of got tired of doing it for a while, and then focused on my work for a couple, like for years. And then in a weird way, 360, it all came back around, and I'm able to work with brands that I really, you know, loved collecting and working with. And just, it's weird how that works out, right?
Yeah, brands like Nike, right? They're commissioning you for murals.
Yeah, we did that.
I was going to ask, in terms of transitioning, you know, again, off non-commercial work in graffiti, and then now getting paid for it. I mean, isn't that incredible? It's incredible. It's a shared journey we all have. Like, holy shit, we could actually get paid to do this. But the point is that you do it differently, that now you can get up very differently, different projects, different locations. The scale of the projects are impressive.
We've done stuff in places that were like, where you want us to paint in there. Like, we did this one mural project with Cushy Gigs, which is like the company that I do a lot of these great projects with, that are not just abstract, that are group projects with like Quake and all my guys. And we've done stuff like in the Federal Reserve Bank that's in Doral, like crazy places that some of the guys that we can't even bring certain people on the project, because a lot of these places you need like security clearance, and, you know, we roll with a bunch of criminals. So
yeah. Any inclination, like, wait, you know, here with the Federal Reserve, let's like walk away with a little bit of change.
Yeah. Like, let's take, like, walk around and look around. But like, it's crazy because it's not just like, oh, we want a mural. No, like, they want hand styles. They'll tell us specifically, like, oh, graffiti style, and they'll show us examples of like, oh, hand styles, throw ups, tags. And we're like, whoa, this is crazy. Okay, you know, we can do that. We did another wall in the Federal Reserve that was all inspired by like Japanese animation, you know, like they were showing us images of like Akira, and then even like more finer illustration work with like Sorayama stuff. Like, that was all the reference that this place was giving us to do. So in the Federal Reserve Bank in Doral, one major office space, there's like a whole massive wall with tags and throw ups. Another one that's all Jap animation stuff, and like, you would never expect it.
So speaking of animation, you did this project, which is a fantastic project. Tell us about this animation project.
Oh, this was amazing too. This is also through this amazing team with Icon Class. This project was like kind of like a dream project too, because, you know, I was never really good at basketball. I was a football guy growing up in Miami. I just played football, but I, you know, obviously didn't go professional with that, right? So being able to put my artwork into a sports game like NBA Live 2019 was like a huge honor, because, you know, I had wanted to paint an actual basketball court for a while, and the opportunity never came up. But then this opportunity came up, which I thought was great, because now people can play on the court like all over the world against each other. And my son plays it, but it's funny because they're like, oh, why, you know, they're telling me like, oh, this 2K is better, you know, but I'm like, I got my own
But what I
court, you
love,
know, come on,
abstract,
baby.
what I love, what I love, and I'm pausing at this frame for a minute because, you know, again, it's part of getting up. As writers, like if we're playing a game, we're like, oh shit, somebody got up in this game, right? There's a writer, was there a writer involved? We always ask ourselves, because sometimes that was kind of very normal. They would do these very corny graffiti graphics and not hire us for these projects.
Right.
But now they do, which is fantastic because you get authentic work. Not only authentic work, you get buy-in from the culture that you're a part of.
Yeah, it's an honor, you know, because you get to put yourself there, and then like years later, you know, the game is still around, and you know, my grandkids will be able to go on there. Oh, I'm gonna go play on Grandpa's court. So like that, I live for stuff like that. Like that's priceless, you know.
Yeah, you're not afraid of the commercial gigs, which I like, and balanced everything else. I've also liked this idea of applying yourself, or applying your graphics, applying your graffiti to material goods, right? That is just such a cool concept for us. Again, I look at all this as, okay, I'm getting up, and you guys are going to get me up. Before it was a train or a bus, where a wall may be static. Now we have abstract in a duffel bag that could be traveling around the world.
Yeah, yeah. That bag was a personal project. Put a couple out, you know, every once in a while, put some stuff on my site because not everybody can afford a commission piece, or, you know, sometimes people don't make it to when I get the opportunity to put out a cool project or collaboration with a brand, maybe they won't be able to make it there or whatever. So I always try to put some things on my site that everybody can collect, you know, whether it be a bag or a t-shirt, you know, I'll put it up for a little while and I'll take it down, and I might even put the same one back up again, you know, just so it just creates a little excitement, you know. But it's fun to take your stuff and put it on different products. And now with technology, you know, there's just so many different things you can do, like straight from your iPad to the printer, you know?
Yeah. But look, again, here's the source, right? The source, if we go back to your source, the original source, which was graffiti, you were getting up on walls, you were getting up on trains. This is a great shot, by the way. Tell us a little bit about your relationship with 004, because they are like holding it down here in Wynwood. They've been around for a long time.
Yeah, the first time I ever put up a 004 was in 2006. So about the same time I like got down with MSG, because I got down with MSG later on. And I didn't even know, you know, like anybody yet, right? And like I had put it up because there was a wall that they sponsored in Wynwood 2006. It was on the outside of the Margulies collection, and I was like with a couple guys from like FC, it was like View, and my boy Y was like a Disguise Tag, and then some other artists. And then I met with him in a parking lot to buy paint, right? And then years later, it just evolved, but we've been like brothers ever since we met. Like we clicked, and it just became a crew, aside from just like a brand, and the only brand that's based out of Miami that has its own spray paint, you know, which is awesome, you know, things that have our own color. And
mad props for sure. And of course, I mean, you still hit up the freights, don't you? Well, no,
here and there,
don't implicate yourself. Don't implicate
here and
yourself.
there, do stuff, you know, like man, like my crew and like my crew is like, these dudes are like relentless monsters, right? So like they don't sleep, like they just, and every once in a while I jump like in the car with them, but a lot of stuff is just recent, you know. My crew doesn't sleep, man. These guys, I have not done nowhere near as many spots as they've done, you know, like Mab's Verse and Tesso and Reds, and everyone in the 004 side of my fam is like monsters, you know.
Let me ask you this. Sorry to interject, but there's this interesting character on this whole car on the right side with a bucket hat. Who is he?
Yeah, so, all right, the Vampiro characters. The Vampiro characters, they're like kind of have like a b-boy style to them, but they got some teeth, and they're like real simple style. I've been having fun with those for about a year and a half now, and it's like a totally different thing, right? They kind of were birthed in Havana. Like after I did this one big wall, you have like kids hanging out at your wall all day, like just dying for you to give them like the leftovers of a can. So at some point, you know, when you're done, you're like, all right, let me go paint something for them now, right? Like something else for them. So they'll go do some quick little examples of something simple that maybe one of them could copy. I don't know. So there's this cartoon from Cuba called Vampiros en Havana. It's a famous cartoon, really famous cartoon. Juan Padron, who recently passed away, was the guy who created it. And it was just a really famous Cuban cartoon. So I was like, oh, let me do like a graffiti style of like this vampire of my own, you know? So I started doing them, messing around, like one day in San Isidro, which is like a district in Havana Vieja, with all these kids like mobbed up following me. And then I started having fun with these characters. I started doing them. And then now it's like a thing, like it took its own little life on the side, you know, where I have like a couple toys from it. I got to do
by the way, it took its life big time during Art Basel this year with this
Yeah.
project with Billionaire Boys Club.
Yeah, your neighbor.
Tell me about
Your
this
neighbor to the
project.
museum. All right, so this project, they basically wanted to just do something, an activation at their shop with a local artist. I mean, like a day or two before, they had a huge activation with Heber Brantley, which everyone and their mother came to that. But this was more like local, you know, people who might know my work and want to come check me out. So I unveiled some stuff that I had, like that giant inflatable. That thing had been sitting in my garage for months, and I hadn't shown it to anybody yet. And I just got that made overseas for fun, just to see how it would be, you know, going on the internet, looking for manufacturers in Asia that make like giant, crazy balloons and, you know, Macy's Parade type shit. So that's what that was. And I got to unveil it there, and we did a collaborative T-shirt. I mean, for me, it's cool because I would like to do more things with brands like this, and like more involved collaborations where, you know, putting together things over a long period of time. But we just did like a live session where I created my own version of the Billionaire Boys Club logo, and then was able to sell like my stuff there and do some live painting, bring my boy, my DJ, you know, that's done like all the shows that I've done with Louis Arson.
It was a great activation, and boy, you were hitting home runs this December because you also collaborated with Entes with you got commissioned to do a mural for the Museum of Graffiti, and you guys decided to do portraits and pay tribute to some iconic figures in the culture, and with some of them you even put vampire teeth.
Yeah, so Entes is like my bro from Peru. First time I painted in South America was with Entes, so it was really dope to collaborate with him here in Miami, because we did a similar wall like this in Havana with Paladino STP, aka Good and Shitty, and we did this wall together, me and Entes, where we kind of like freestyled a lot of characters. Some of them are like fictitious, some of them are actual people. Like I got you in there, I got a couple of my boys in there that popped up at the wall. If they popped up at the wall, I threw them in there. Miss Reds is in there. There's an old picture, like there's a Lady Pink in there. There's Futuras in there. So like homies and like influential homies, and it's characters and influential characters that represent other type, you know, people that might exist. It's a fun wall. Didn't really.
Who's the vampire? Who's that?
That
character?
pink one, he doesn't even exist. Him, and there's like a purple one too. They're not even vampire, real people.
I want to come back to this vampire character because he's fascinating. He's right. You've manifested him. You've realized him.
Look,
and it's super cool.
That one right here.
Yes, exactly. By the way, we have them for people who are interested. We do carry him at the museum shop. So visit our shop and pick him up, Vampiro, so you can hang out with your Cheech Wizard or your whatever Futura character or the Claus character in your house.
I got a Vampiro Cloud.
Cool.
He's hanging with the tail.
Love it.
You got arms. It's like a pillow too. When you're on your plane, when you're on the flight, you can just, you know.
Ah, nice one.
Yeah.
Again, I like the kind of parallels you create between your themes, right? In terms of readapting them, right? Especially to photography. And again, you did this series. Are these all in Cuba? The kids that turn into vampires?
Yeah. So like when you're out like hanging out painting in the street, like all these kids mob up around you, and then there's the different age groups. So then I thought it would be cool. Like one recognizable thing in Cuba is like the school uniforms, right? So like you could see the different age groups by the uniform colors. So I was like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to do like real photos of the kids, and then paint them like the vampires, you know, and then paint onto the photo, you know, but digitally paint onto there. So like this is a young girl that lives right next to a friend of mine's restaurant, and she's seen like all the walls in the neighborhood go up. Like she's there at every single wall. She's the only one that we give a can to, and everybody chases her, jealous with a can or whatever. But I turned her into a vampire, or like this child here, and it's like kind of like it's for the kids, really. You know, it's something that's based off of a cartoon, but my own rendition of it. You know, and it's funny because I've done like usually when I shoot like people my age, or either the best photos that come out are usually children and like elderly people, because they just kind of like, I don't know, everyone else tries to like pose too much, you know. The kids are just like, they look right through you. And the same thing with the elders, you know, they just kind of just like give you this gaze where the photo is just like real natural.
Well, one of the things I like is in your photographs and in your interests, kids are ever present.
Mm-hmm.
There is something really wonderful about your relationship with the public, with your murals, but also in how they engage children. And particularly, I like this photograph. I don't know what country this is.
That's in Dominican Republic.
Mural.
That's in, thank you. That was an amazing project Evoca put together called Artesano in Dominican Republic. And I was fortunate enough to be a part of this project where we go to a neighborhood where it's all like, basically like, there's no paved roads, no mailboxes, just like this area was called Playa Muertos, which is like, you know, the beach of like the dead. And when we were done, people were like, oh, wow, this is called Playa de los Vivos. Like everybody was like amazed. Like every artist was kind of like representing a different child from the neighborhood on the front of their house. So you could see this girl here. Her name was Smiley. She was she lived in a shack, you know. We came across this house because a friend of mine was just taking a portrait of her mother, and she was like, no, you got to take a portrait of my daughter. She's coming home from school now. And when she came, she's like, yeah. And he was telling her about the project, and she said, can you paint something here? So I was like, you know what? I'll paint her on the front of your house. And it's really great because she ended up being like in the news and the cover of the newspaper, and like they made her look like this like superstar, you know. So
nice.
This is like working with people that might not have like all the material things, or might not have the opportunities that we have. So it was really dope to go into that neighborhood and just kind of like hit them with all this art. And, you know, hopefully we left an impression.
Right. And of course, they're also leaving an impression on you, these kids, because you bring them into the studio.
Right. Well, I'm a dad first, you know, so you always got to rep for the shorties, you know?
Yeah, no doubt. So, you know, folks, one of the things we're learning here, like ABSTRK is not one thing. He's many things. You know, he's been growing as a man, as an artist, as a father right before our eyes.
That's crazy.
And you continue to kind of, again, push the boundaries of your art, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in this day and age now that we find ourselves a bit challenged as artists, a bit challenged as humans, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself going past Corona, and how is Corona affecting you? Well, let's start with that.
Well, okay, so we kind of had like the next 2 to 3 months kind of like semi-ironed out, a couple things, like getting ready, a couple group projects that we were working on. All of them were canceled, you know. One thing that, I mean, this has, I feel prepared as living this life and being like a visual artist and like somebody who works freelance and gig to gig. You kind of, you know, you adapt to like managing your money well and learning how to be responsible and not just putting all your eggs in one basket. So when times like this come, even if you don't have a whole lot, you kind of are already built for something like this to manage. But it's got me thinking, you know, there's all different types of things that we can do now digitally. I mean, the other day I did like a screen border for a DJ, a friend of mine got now, who does this party called Mixtape Mondays, and I did his border for his live DJ session that was through Wood Tavern. So I was like, wow, this is interesting. Now, you know, you can have brands and DJs like working with different artists to, you know, design their live screens. I mean, there's so many different little things that no one really pays attention to that make a huge impression.
Yeah, I like that you are so adaptive to our time right now. I keep talking to artists and saying, you know what, I know this is a difficult time, but it gives us opportunity to readapt and also apply ourselves. And you're a great example of that, of applying yourself to different mediums, and you know, also investing in yourself. I mean, like Vampiro, who's gonna? I would have never thought of that for myself.
Yeah, a lot of times I'll spend like my last, you know, bucks on like making something cool that that's not gonna make any money. It's, you know, it's gonna be something that it's just, I gotta see it in my, like, oh, I can get this done. You know, like, how much is it? I'm like, I need it. Like that freaking inflatable. I was like, that thing's sitting in my garage, you know, and I'm like, one day I inflated it behind my house just to do a tester to make sure I had no holes. And my neighbors were like, what the hell is that?
that's the kind of thing somebody can rent for their quinceañera.
Yeah,
you know,
like you can rent it out for children's birthdays, you know?
You know, you name it. It's your wedding. You could abstract in your wedding.
Yeah, I was like, man, I just want to put it up somewhere, or like fill it with helium and fly it, you know, off through downtown or something, you know?
Abstract, as we wind down, I just want to say, man, what a pleasure it is to have come to Miami to discover your work more intimately, to have you collaborate with us at the museum, and also to have had you do a portrait of me.
Yeah, you're in the wall.
Cool. Yeah,
you're in the wall. I mean, yeah, man, I
am I the money green or really sick? I don't know. I don't know what it was. But, you know, folks who have joined us, I want to thank you again, but also invite you to ask Abstract some, tripping over myself, ask Abstract some questions. You know, we did a quick survey of this amazing artist and all the years that it's taken for him to get to this point. I'm sure. Wow. Oh, nice. What's up with that? Is that an addition to Vampiro?
This guy's not even out. He's just a prototype. Check his sneakers out. You know, the sneaker game's got to be on point. And he's got a jersey on. He's got the hat with the branding on it. But he just came in to say hi real quick.
So let me ask you something, Abstract. You're seeing Wynwood change.
Right.
Right? You're seeing your community change. You're a part of it. You're engaged in it. And certainly, perhaps you're moving beyond it, right? Beyond Miami. In your imagination and the scope of where you could go with your work and where you've been with your work, in thinking about, of course, the restrictions that we're going to be facing at the moment, how do you see yourself going beyond Miami?
Well, I feel like I would really, I mean, there's something that I would, and this is something I would like to do in Miami, but I feel like this can take me beyond, you know, here, but it would be something I would like to do for the first time in Miami, is to have like a public piece that's permanent, you know, not a painting, not a mural, like a giant, like a sculpture. There's so many public sculptures in our city. I don't think anybody from in our world, in our culture has that in our city yet, and I would be honored to have one, because I want something to outlast me, you know, because I'm not here forever.
I'm trying to be the first one if there's nobody else. So I'm pitching actively. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see that, because that opens the doors for all of us, you know.
You know what? Again, it's in the realm of possibility. And again, I want to refer back to Michael Walsh's conversation yesterday, right? Because it's relative to what we've been talking about and what you were just showing me about your figure, right? Because you could take that concept and realize it and then pitch it, right? You could deck it out and bring it to somebody and pitch for a grant. It's in the realm of possibility for you, man.
Yeah, Michael's stuff is incredible. I was fortunate to meet him a couple years ago, and he came down here, and he was down here for a while, and he was hanging out with some of the homies there, and I got to like pick his brain a little bit. And I wasn't really doing like full on sculptures like this yet, you know, and then I didn't know like both sides of his work at the time, and then I put two and two together. I was like, whoa, all right, you know. And it really inspirational. I mean, the whole cars and on the graph side and everything was great. But then seeing how he transitioned into that. So
but again, are you seeing the parallels in all of this when we're, you know, these talks, and when I all these artists that have been coming on with us, that some that I know for many years, and some that I am just learning about over the last couple of years, and you start seeing a parallel path in terms of, you know, how do we transition in our work and elevate it, and materialize it, and all kinds of iterations, whether it's a toy, whether it's a sculpture, whether it's jewelry. And you've been doing that. And so now, obviously, it's time to think bigger.
Yeah.
What's in the realm of scale is public sculpture. Why not?
Yeah.
If it was more abstract, I mean, I think, you know, I would encourage you to even think architecturally. You know, again, it goes back to the talk. If you look at what Remy was doing, and in terms of abstraction, and you see that some, you know, around here in the community, people, you know, both in fine art or in architectural design or in street art, they're all kind of having this interesting relationship with the walls. And again, you lifting up pieces off the surface that lends itself in some form or another.
You could even, you know, get to the point where the piece is the entire structure that you can go inside of it, you know, and you can have, this is the actual building, you know, working with an architect. So these are ideas.
So here's a little pearl. Take a picture, that's a sculpture picture you have, put little windows on it, put little people around it.
Put a little,
perhaps, you never know.
That's the way to go.
We'll see a building. You know, folks, I don't see any of you asking questions. What's going on tonight? Is he that engaging, or are you guys that engaged with yourselves? You know, it's funny about these conversations. Sometimes people are having conversations on top of conversations. I
haven't seen the comments since the first half, and I already saw a couple.
Red is telling somebody to stay home. Anyway, listen, as we wind down, we have 2 minutes. Anything left that you want to tell us about you and what's ahead of us in terms of your career, what we're going to see?
Just stay tuned. You know, I'm grateful for every day that, you know, I get to wake up and be with my family and create stuff. So we'll see what the future holds. It's great to like be able to wake up and the kids not be in school all day, you know, and like just running around the house and they're like, oh, I'm bored. I'm like, you know, you're gonna look back at this and be like, man, I missed this, you know.
Nice. One quick, we got 2 minutes, and Persuade asked, what about animation with Vampiro?
Oh yeah. So I haven't really gone far into it yet. I've just been playing with it like on a very, very like beginner level on my own. And man, let me tell you, the animation programs that are out there are amazing, but some of them, man, they're really difficult. Like I was playing with. You
don't have to do it. You can art direct it.
I know, but I like to learn it, you know, because I mean, I learned a lot of things on my own, like Illustrator, Photoshop, all those things I learned on my own. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna just do the same thing with like Toon Boom. No, man, it's
ABSTRK. One last question from Allison. What's a piece you've made that you won't ever sell?
Oof, my kids.
Boom. There it is. Excellent question. Listen, we're gonna sign out. I want to thank you. I'll
thank you
sooner than later, I hope.
Yeah, thanks, bro.
And I want tomorrow, folks. Create is joining us. Yesterday, I said Create was joining us today, but actually, Create is from LA. He's going to join us tomorrow. He's an OG legend from LA, so I'm looking forward to that. And then following him will be Risky from LA. So we got LA back to back on our artist talk over the next 2 days. So my brother, cuídate.
All right, man. Bless, man. Thanks for having me, Carlos.
And I'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right, brother. Peace.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you.